Hi. So we are here in the Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. And we're starting off with our first grave of the day. Probably one of my favorite actors in the entire world, Jimmy Stewart. He was like freaking awesome and was in like everything, and literally died like 3 weeks before I was born. So it's like, but I loved Jimmy Stewart. He was in a lot of movies. Some of my favorite movies that he's in is like Rear Window, and he's obviously in the Christmas classic It's a Wonderful Life. He's in so many movies, can't even like list them all, but he was really awesome. And right next to him is his wife Gloria as well. But yeah, so I love Jimmy Stewart, and this is our first stop. It makes me really happy because he was one of my favorite actors. So if you want to come find him, find this Archer statue, and he's right down the hill. So we are still in Forest Lawn, Glendale. We're at the Gardens of Memory. Unfortunately, this is a locked area, so we can't get in unless you know somebody that has a key. But buried behind these doors is the niche of Humphrey Bogart, another really awesome actor. He was in like Casablanca and like The African Queen and stuff. He's pretty cool. My dad really liked him. So Humphrey Bogart is back here, along with just recently one of his wives and another great actress, Bacall, just got her ashes placed in here with Humphrey Bogart's, which is really awesome because their love story was so sweet, and now she is with him for eternity in the same niche. That just happened like last year. So Lauren Bacall is now with Humphrey Bogart, and Lauren Bacall was also in a bunch of movies. One of my favorite movies that she was actually in Howl's Moving Castle, the English version. She did the voice of the Witch of the Waste. So, but she did a lot of movies with Humphrey Bogart, and that was how they met. And so their love story continues on behind these doors, which we cannot get into. But we will be posting a picture of what his and hers niche looks like, so you guys can still see it. But yeah. So here we are in the Court of Freedom, right next to the Freedom Mausoleum. Here we have this little so cute garden for none other than the man himself, Walt Disney. I don't think I need to explain much on who Walt Disney is. Everybody knows who Walt Disney is. The guy who created Disney, the guy who made my childhood happiness, is in this garden. So he was not frozen, like people believe. I believe his ashes are in this garden somewhere. But yeah, so here is Walt Disney. He's right outside of the mausoleum to the left. But yeah, Walt Disney. Here we are inside of the Freedom Mausoleum. Up there, way at the top, is singer Nat King Cole. You know, he was a pretty awesome singer. One of my favorite songs by him are the Christmas songs he sings, because his voice is so soothing. And he sings the song Unforgettable. That's one of his really good songs. So he's up there with his wife, Nat King Cole. Again, we're in the Freedom Mausoleum. We are downstairs in the sanctuary of worship. And way up there, the second one from the top, is Chico Marx. He was part of the Marx Brothers with Groucho and Harpo, and sometimes Zeppo. They made a lot of short movies and films. movies, I want to say. They were a comedic act and they were all brothers. And Chico is here and he was pretty cool. He wore the little hat and had the curly hair. Some of my favorite Marx Brothers films, I like the Night at the Opera and like the Duck Soup. Those are pretty good ones. So, in the sanctuary of liberation, just down a little bit away from Chico Marx, we find one of the three Stooges, Mr. Larry Fine. Man, I love Stooges. Larry wasn't my favorite. You know, everybody liked Curly, but Larry was still pretty good. The bald guy with the curly hair. He's right here. Mr. Larry Fine. Freaking awesome. So here we are at the Great Mausoleum in the Forest Lawn, Glendale. And we are here because we cannot get inside. Unfortunately, this is a private locked area to the public. But buried in this little hallway area right there is comedian actor Edwin. And he's mostly known for just being a comedic actor. He was in like Mary Poppins and he did the voice for the Mad Hatter in the original Alice in Wonderland. And his niche is in this section, but like I said, unfortunately, it is blocked off to the public and there's no public access. So unfortunately, this is as close as we're gonna get to him at this time. So here, we're still at Forest Lawn, Glendale. There's the Great Mausoleum behind us. And here is the grave of L. Frank Baum. Now the name might not sound super familiar to a lot of you guys, but he's actually the guy who wrote The Wizard of Oz and the entire book series. So he's right here outside of the Great Mausoleum, Mr. L. Frank Baum himself. So this area is right outside of where legendary pop singer Michael Jackson is laid to rest. Fortunately, just like with Edwin, that area is closed to the public. You cannot get inside, there's no public access. But if you stand right here where these three stained glass windows are, this is probably the closest you can get to where Michael Jackson is, because he's just right behind those windows. Those three windows will shine down on his sarcophagus. So it's the closest will be to Michael Jackson for now, unless something changes, but this is where Michael Jackson is.
So here we have the grave of the famous actress of Elizabeth Taylor. Now we only have pictures of her grave because video cameras were not allowed in this part of the mausoleum. So this was a separate mausoleum from where like Michael Jackson, and then where this was off to like the right side. And we could still go inside, but there was no video cameras that were allowed. So fortunately, we just were able to get this picture of Elizabeth Taylor's. I'm assuming it's some sort of niche type grave. It's really cool with the angel statue on top. It's actually very pretty. I personally have not seen any Elizabeth Taylor movies, but I know she was a very important and impactful actress to a lot of people. But I know that some of her more well-known films were things like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, Cleopatra, and I know she did tons of other films. So if you were a fan of Elizabeth Taylor, here she is for you. So this here is the grave of Louis L'Amour. Now his grave was located just outside of the mausoleum that Elizabeth Taylor was in. Now we could have recorded this, but at the time I didn't, so that was on me. I apologize. So we're doing a voiceover for Louis L'Amour. He was a very well-known author of Western books. I know that my dad was a big fan and read a lot of his books. I know, and I think some of his books were made into Western movies as well. I don't know which ones exactly, but I know some were. But I know some of his books that were well known. He's got books called The Warrior's Path, To the Far Blue Mountains, Over the Dry Side, The Man from the Broken Hills, Treasure Mountain. It's got all sorts of books. I know that they're still for sale nowadays, so you can go and read them if you are interested. But yeah, here is the author, Louis L'Amour. It's great.
Grumpy cat, grumpy forever.
She had dwarfism, I think, or some cat.
Is that why she was always so grumpy? Grumpy cat, the famous cat from the memes. Sunland Pet Cemetery in Phoenix, Arizona. Grumpy cat, little paw print. She's here by the tree. And that's it. So come see Grumpy Cat if you're in Phoenix. She's at the Sunland Pet Cemetery. Grumpy Cat.